welcome to Read, Drink, Talk, a book club podcast where we read dope books, drink liquor, and talk shit. My name is Anthony Renteria.
I'm Ariel Fletcher.
And today we have a very special episode, our very first adaptation reaction, where we are discussing the 1976 adaptation of Carrie, directed by Brian De Palma and starring Sissy Spacek. And for those who haven't seen the movie or read the book, beware, because we will be spoiling both things in great detail as we will be comparing the two against each other. But before we start talking about the book, I just wanted to ask you, what are you drinking?
I am back with the vodka sodas. So I guess that's just going to be my thing now because I found that I don't have any issues the next day after drinking. So
Nice.
yeah, we're back with that again. I went and I had to go get some vodka before this started to make sure I was good for the whole episode. But yeah. What about you? You're always trying something different every episode. So what are you on today?
Yeah, so I did a little throwback because I remember the first episode. I think you were drinking Crown Apple, which I had never tried before. So I got that. So I've been drinking the Crown Apple.
Okay, just straight.
Well, I took a shot before we started.
Okay,
and that was very nasty. I don't know how. I don't know. I'm not a fan of it. It's not an apple taste that I expected. It's very syrupy, and sweet. It's way too sweet.
It's super sweet.
Yeah, but I'm mixing it with the ginger ale, so that's actually a really good combination.
Yeah, and sometimes I used to do the cran apple cran apple, cranberry and the crown apple mixed together.
Ooh.
I like that. That's pretty good because the tartness of the cranberry tones down that sweetness. But yeah, crown apple is a super sweet. And then when I wasn't drinking crown apple, I would drink crown peach, which I feel is even sweeter. And so, now that I'm on my vodka soda train, I haven't really done Crown too much. I'm trying to think. I think I had a shot of Crown. Oh, yeah. Last weekend we went to a kid's birthday party, funny enough. And
It was handing out Crown shots.
And they also had Crown. So I did Crown shots then. It was Crown apple. So I was like, okay, I forgot how sweet this is in comparison to now, my literally just vodka and soda water. So I'm like, all right. But yeah, so glad you tried it at least one time.
Yeah, well, yeah, I'm gonna have to finish this
try
bottle.
It with the cranberry sometime. So.
Oh, okay, yeah. Next episode, I'm gonna get some cranberry juice and try it out.
Yeah.
Nice.
Just give it a shot.
Yeah, my goal is to try all the Crown variations. At my liquor store, all they have is normal Crown, Crown Apple, Crown Vanilla. Have you tried that one?
I have tried Crown Vanilla, but it was so long ago. I barely remember what it tastes like. But I've seen there's a few different variations of Crown. They just not all liquor stores have them. But I've seen like I said, peach is kind of their new thing. Did your store have Crown Peach?
Mm-mm.
Oh, yeah. Well, I say new, but quote unquote, maybe in the last year or so, I've seen a lot of the Crown Peach. And I remember one time I was at a liquor store. I didn't get it. And now I feel like I should have tried it. It was a Crown, salted caramel. And I was like, what? Which sounded good because I love the salted caramel, whatever. And I should have tried it then, but I don't think I was a Crown fan when I saw it. So I was like, yeah, so
interesting. Okay,
it was a while back.
Yeah, I might have to hit up different liquor stores and see what they got. The only other one they have I forgot what it's called, but it's a special edition or deluxe. I don't know. It's in a black box, and I guess it's aged or something.
Yeah, I have seen that. Have not tried it though. Have not tried it.
Yeah, that'll be the last one because it was $80 or some shit. I was like, oh fuck,
shit. Yeah. What the hell? They're tripping on that one. We got so normally I drink Deep Eddy's vodka just because it's cheaper, but it doesn't give me a headache. Prefer Tito's, but it's, if I just need a cheap little bottle of vodka here and there, I'll do the Deep Eddies or whatever. And today went to the liquor store and the Tito's was on sale, so drinking that Tito's today. Woo woo, I'm excited. It's like I got the name brand shit,
Yeah. Oh shit.
Yeah, and it feels a little different than that Deep Eddy. Is not gonna lie. I'm kind of feeling my drink. I've had one, started sipping on my second one already, so I'm feeling it, and I haven't eaten dinner yet, so going on an empty stomach. So I'm ready. I'm ready for this review.
Yes. Okay. Well, let's get into it. So this is going to be our first adaptation reaction. If anyone who's just popping into this episode blindly, we covered the Carrie book by Stephen King. We have 3 episodes of that. If you want to check that out to hear our deep discussions on what happens in the book. But we thought of also not recapping, but comparing the movies to the book, and that's what we will be doing here. And I guess just to start out, I wanted to start just because I think this was the first time watch for you, and it was for me as well. I've never seen this version of Carrie. I just wanted to get your general read, how was the movie, not counting the Carrie's book stuff, but how was it just generally for you? Were you bored, or how did it? Because it is kind of an older movie. And I felt that pretty immediately. And I was like, ooh.
Immediately. I was like, oh shit, this is 1976. Mind you, my mother was born in 1977. So this movie is older than my mom, technically. But it's not that, I don't discriminate against old movies. So, overall, it wasn't horrible. It wasn't one of those movies where I just wanted to turn it off immediately. I did find it really funny though, just because it's the 70s. So I know the things they do, just generally, this is a Stephen King novel. This is a horror, quote unquote, book. And so I thought it was really funny just what horror was in 1976. I was just I wonder if this was really scaring people, because
there was what I read. Yeah.
It's just it's not very gory, before we get into the details of book versus movie, but just overall, the movie is not very bloody, it's not very gory, it's really it's really simplistic, and so the fact that it still qualifies under horror or thriller, I think it says horror on there, was funny to me, because I'm I wonder really, was this scaring bitches back in 1976? Is this one of those movies where people went to the theater and oh my god, that was horrifying? I don't know, but I just thought it was really funny in that aspect, because I'm thinking if this movie was remade in 2022, it would be super gory and bloody, and just the effects I think would be just way better. So there weren't the special effects and stuff. I was just well, what can I really expect out of a 1976 movie? So, but overall, didn't hate the movie. Just more so found it comical.
Than
anything else. It was kind of comical.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. I was surprised at how old-fashioned it was. The thing that really pulled me out, just broadly, was the I don't know what it's called, but it's I just think of it with there's that old horror movie called what is it, Psycho, where it's jing 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 jing, that
it was
sound.
The sound effects. Yes.
That shit played in this movie, and I was oh no.
It was so funny. Oh my god. I was laughing at the screen, not the sound effects. And mind you, my wife watched it with me. She hasn't ever read the book. And so I was just laughing. I'm the sound effects are so funny, because that's another reason why I'm was this shit scary in 1976? I don't know, but just watching it now. And I'm a person who doesn't I don't like horror movie, especially paranormal. Again, if this movie was redone, I would probably watch it. because it's like tangible, even though it's like telekinesis. It's like tangible. It's not like paranormal. I would watch this, but I just feel like it could be so much scarier. And like,
Yeah.
those sound effects, Ace, it's just like, that's almost taking away from the horror.
Yeah, because the thing of that bothered me, it would do the sound effect before a scary thing happened. So it'd be like, jang, 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 and then you'd see like a knife. And I'm like, wait, what the fuck? Like, oh my God. Yeah, that part, I was like, oh my God, hopefully Ariel didn't cringe too much watching this. I'm glad you at least laughed.
It wasn't, again, like, I just went into this because we talked about it before on some of our other episodes, like towards the beginning, where I was just like shitting on, like, I hate the idea of like watching a movie that that's made after a book. I hate that because like I'll just be super critical, but I really went into this one trying to be like just open-minded, like, okay, like for reals, let me just like watch this as a movie and give my honest opinion. And it wasn't that bad. So I was watching it and being like, that didn't happen in the book, but at the same time I was just like, it's just funny to me because I'm like, well, that's just, I don't know, like, I'm like, that's kind of funny, like, these sound effects are just super comical. I don't know. Also, did not know that John Travolta was in this movie.
Oh my, I was like, yo.
I said, John Travolta? immediately. So like, because I didn't, like, the thing is, normally, like, I love IMDb, and like, I'm gonna look up any movie that I'm about to watch or TV show. I want to know the scores, the ratings, like, I'm about to look at who's in this movie. Before I watched this, I did not look up anything. So only thing I knew was that it was 1976. And so when the movie's like opening up and it's telling us who's in the movie and I see John Travolta's name, I'm like, what? Like, who the fuck is John Travolta gonna be? And then like as the movie was starting, I was like, oh, I bet he's gonna be Billy. Like, I just bet. And so like to see him as Billy, I thought that was so funny because that's not at all who, like, John Travolta does not give me the vibes of Billy, So it was just so funny that that's who they casted him as.
Yes. Oh my God. And one more thing before we get into, because I think that'll be a good starting point, talking about the actors and the characters. One other thing I wanted to mention was, this is like really rare in Hollywood as well, but the book came out in 1974 and this movie came out in 1976. So like within a year they started shooting this movie and that thing was done within 2 years. And that's just like, so what's crazy to me is like the book doesn't feel old at all. Like reading it does not, like, you could tell me like this was written yesterday and I'm like, all right, cool. But then the movie is so aged. And maybe it's the director who does, like, I'm sure you didn't like notice, like, well, you probably did notice, like, a lot of the shots, how they were just like very strangely composed. There was a lot of weird things happening that was like, wait, why is he doing this?
And sometimes they're so long. Some of the scenes were so long and drawn out. I'm like, was that necessary? But
the pacing and the editing was so weird, like, for and like coming from the book that is very structured oddly. I was like, all right, they're going to do like a clean, simple narrative. And it is pretty simple and the movie is short, but then it like jumps around very oddly, like how it transitions from one scene to the next scene. I'm like, oh, okay, now we're at the prom? Like, oh, fuck.
Yeah, literally.
But to get into the details, let's break down some of these character choices. I guess we'll start with John Travolta because we already kind of mentioned him. Yeah. So you did not like him for Billy?
No, no, I don't. Okay, and I don't. Maybe it's just like a bias I have, but like John Travolta is just not, like, Billy is supposed to be this like asshole, just like piece of shit. That's like that's how I pictured Billy. Like, literally, I think I said it on the first episode, but like if anybody has watched Stranger Things, I don't know if you watch Stranger Things, but like Stranger Things, like season 3, I think, is when we're introduced to a character and his name is actually Billy. And he's just a hot piece of shit, like just a teenager piece of shit, dude. Like, that straight is exactly, I mean, yeah, like, just horrible. Like, he's just a horrible person. And like low-key, like a little bit kind of racist. Like, so like him, that is who I pictured. And like Billy, you said you have not watched Stranger Things?
Mm-mm. No.
Okay, yeah. So like Billy in the show, like he's like, like, but he's like this hot dude. Like even like the moms are like kind of like looking at him like, oh my God, like, and he flirts with like older women and he drives like a fast car and he's just an ass. But
Okay.
like
Yeah, I'm seeing him now.
he's like, he's like a kid that like he's like 16 or 17 and he smokes and he drinks and he's just like, yeah, like I'm just like a bad
Yeah,
boy
this
and
this
like
guy looks the part too.
yeah, he's
Yeah.
like a douche. So like him, and again, his name is Billy in the show. So I'm like, that's exactly like that's the type of character I pictured. And John Travolta by himself to me does not like he does
Yeah.
not fit that bill. And even in the movie, even as he's like acting, I'm like he's still not like he's not
Mhm.
even I can't even look at him just as the character. Like
Yeah.
even if it would have been like, oh, I'm surprised that that's John Travolta if he had like acted it better, but it just felt like that's just not John Travolta. Like he's just
Yeah.
not that guy.
Yeah.
So I was surprised by that, but I guess I don't know if that was just like the heartthrob like type of choice or I don't know. I don't know. But
Yeah,
what did you think of him?
yeah, it was a strange choice because, at first I saw him and I was like, all right, like maybe he was a big star or something at the time.
Hmm.
So like, okay, I get it. But then like when I started seeing his performance, that's when I was very confused because he almost plays the character as like very weak and
Yes,
like
what?
very
Yes.
not shy, but like, I don't know. There was this like in the book, the power dynamic is very clear that Billy is,
Yes.
essentially has Chris wherever he wants her in a very
Yes.
abusive way. And in this one, like we're introduced to them in the car and that whole sequence where he's like slapping her and stuff. Like it wasn't even
Yeah.
like in the book, I imagined very hard slaps, like slaps to
Yes.
where you're like, yo, dude, you're fucking like, what the fuck are you doing?
Where her
And
lip
this
has
one,
swollen up type shit. Yeah,
yeah. And
like
this one was it felt way safer and playful and
yeah.
like almost like he was doing it out of fear instead of
Yeah.
out of like controlling anger. And then
Yeah.
like, yeah, just how he performs it, his weird, like he seemed like maybe it's John Travolta in general, but like he just seems really dumb. Like the
Yeah.
character seemed really dumb. Like how he was drinking his beer and it was like all slobbering all over him.
Yes.
That whole car
Right.
sequence, I was like, who is this guy?
And I
Like
don't
he's
know, cause
so
and even yeah, like when he's drinking that beer and the cops roll by, it's like the Billy in the book to me would have kept drinking the beer. Like I don't give a
yeah.
fuck about
Or
these cops.
thrown
You
the
know what I'm
beer at the
saying? Like
cops. Like
something like yeah, like and just in the movie we weren't getting that. Like he just did not give those like dark, just like I don't give a
yeah.
fuck vibes and like
Yeah.
yeah, I just was not and Chris seemed like in their relationship she seemed like more like she held more of the power, like she's like telling him what to do, we're gonna do this that, and in the book it ain't really that, like he's
Hmm.
really like bitch I don't give a fuck about you, I'm basically just kind of here because like I have some weird attraction and also you're giving me pussy, like that's like like in the book it's kind of like that, and
Hmm.
in the movie because even when he's slapping her in the movie I'm like well that didn't even do anything for me, like that
Yeah,
still
that
didn't make you
was
seem of a like a bad boy to me.
yeah, he seemed like a very weak boy
Yeah.
because I mean he was just
Yeah.
like hands to the roof of the car while he's getting like oral sex and he's like
Yeah.
like acting like that was like his first blowjob in his life.
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
I was like, okay, this is very strange. And then I think that's an interesting, well, it's a strange choice to like in the book, the power dynamic of Billy and her, and like Billy essentially rapes her,
Yeah.
probably multiple times, and then
Mhm.
to change that whole thing for the movie to where she like the only time we see them have like any sort of intercourse is her giving head to him. I thought that
Yes.
was like a weird, like kind of confusing
It
option
was
to
and also
pick.
her like fully saying Billy while I said how is she even talking
That was
right
like that
now?
was totally a dude director thing. I was like, all right, this because I mean, this movie feels really horny. Like I
Yeah.
was not ready for
Yeah.
how horny it got. I was like,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
this director really likes shooting women. I
Mm.
guess like
Mhm. Not my fave, not my fave.
one other thing about that scene, since we're already kind of talking about it, I thought it was weird because she's like giving him head, and then she mentions Carrie's name as if she already has the plan. But that was
Yeah, like what the fuck?
before Carrie got invited to the prom. So I was like, wait, that doesn't
Yes.
line up
It
at all.
the whole Yeah, and I guess we'll get into that further, but I was like, why did she just say, because she's like literally giving Billy head, and then she's like, I hate Carrie White. And I was like, what? Like, why would she say that in the middle of this like thing? Like, oh, I'm moaning Billy's name, and then I'm like, I hate Carrie White. Like, what? Like, I was
Yeah.
just so like very extra confused by
It
that.
made me
So
it made me think about, you know how on Twitter there's like that meme, or just in all, well, just people say it broadly in general, where they're like, you know, like you have a hater or someone that like just can't get you out of their head, and then they're like,
mhm.
oh, I live rent free in a couple people's head. Like
Yeah.
Carrie lives in
Yes.
Chris's head all day. Like no matter
Yes.
what she's doing, she's thinking I hate Carrie.
Yeah.
Just, like
Literally.
it
And
actually made me laugh. I was like, damn, you. Talking off Billy, what did you think about like Chris's choice of the
um
actress and then her performance? Did it feel faithful to the book or anything?
actually, I felt a lot better about Chris. Like when
Yeah.
they showed who Chris was, I said, okay. Now, mind you, I also was like, when I watched this movie, I'm like, yeah, I forgot that the book was set in the 70s because, of course, like in my head, everyone looks way more like modern.
Yeah.
So, but even with that, like I still, when I saw Chris, I said, okay, yeah, like I could see how that would be Chris. She seemed like a snooty white girl, like my dad has money, he's a lawyer, I can do whatever I want. I feel like she did embody that, like enough for me.
Hmm.
I didn't pay too much attention. I looked at John Travolta sideways, like that was a weird fucking choice. But
Yeah.
when it came to Chris, I was just like, yeah, it's like that's what I pictured, but just like the 70s version of it.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I felt the same way, and I think the actual performance, you know, at least fit
Hmm.
with the character. I guess the other big one that we need to get into is Sue. I really
Nope.
liked the look of Sue. You didn't like Sue at all?
It's not that I didn't like it. I just, that's not how I pictured her, I guess. And so when I
Mm.
saw her, I was like, oh, okay. Like, to be honest, for me, Sue
Hmm.
was kind of like, she, like in my head, she was like on the same level as Chris, just maybe like
Oh,
a
yeah.
nicer version, if that makes sense. Like
Yeah, like they
the
were
version of
duels. Yeah.
her, yeah, like the version of her that's not just a big ass bitch, and not just like, oh my
Hmm.
god, like I come from money, I can do whatever I want. But I
That is
still
true.
had
That
pictured
is true.
her being like, oh, I'm still like this popular girl. I'm just like the nice popular girl, I guess, or like just kind
Hmm.
of popular just by happenstance, not because I necessarily care about what everyone thinks of me, and I've made myself to be like HBIC. Like she just gave me vibes, like I said, like closer to like, oh, I'm still thinking it's the, like almost like, oh, I'm the captain of the cheer team, but
Yeah.
I'm like nice, so people like me, and I'm
Yeah.
popular because people just like me, not because they're afraid of me.
You,
So
yeah,
like that was the
you're
vibe I
absolutely right.
got.
Yeah, you're absolutely right because she totally looks different from all the other girls. And I
Yeah.
guess that's the part that I like, and probably because I was like, oh, she's cute.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
because she, yeah, like her hair and then like her face is like totally different, where everyone else
Yeah.
is like your typical, just like white girl, blonde girl
Mhm.
type
Mhm.
cheerleader type physique. But yeah, you're so right because yeah, in the novel she is, you know, like 1B to Chris's 1A, you know,
Yeah.
like
Yeah, yeah.
she's the cheer captain, I am like the assistant cheer captain.
Right.
So yeah, and then yeah, that does kind of change the whole dynamic because even throughout the whole film, we don't really, I don't feel like Sue is a very popular girl just because of
Mm-mm.
her appearance.
Yeah.
Like she feels more like the like nerdier type of person, like more
Yeah, yeah.
shy and not. Yeah, that's interesting because I guess that brings us to the Tommy choice, which I also thought was very strange because he's not at
Mhm.
all the football
Nope.
captain at
Nope.
all. Like he
Nope.
looks like
And
a
that's
surfer bro.
definitely, yeah, yeah. So I wasn't expecting that. And I said, maybe this is the 70s, because that's
Maybe,
not
yeah,
at
maybe.
all what I was definitely expecting, like a jock. But again, like to go with how I thought,
Yeah.
like, Sue was gonna be the popular cheerleader, but the likable one. I thought he was gonna be like the popular jock, but the likable one. And so yeah,
Hmm.
to like see him, it wasn't, I didn't get that vibe. Like I didn't, and I didn't hate like the choice for Sue, and I didn't hate the choice for Tommy, but
Yeah.
it just wasn't the vibe that I got from reading the book. But I just feel like this director gave them a completely different vibe, you know? Like they
Yeah.
didn't really, I couldn't, it wasn't like I was so mad at it, because it's almost like the characters were different. Like it was
Yeah.
just a different vibe to them.
I felt that. I did like how Tommy and Sue made sense as a couple.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Like they
yeah.
told like they I was like, okay, yeah, they're totally a thing because they both have like the crazy hair. They both look
Mm-hmm.
kind of odd and strange, and
Yeah.
yeah, like they're like I could see them being an actual couple, which I thought was a cool choice. And then like yeah, the way Tommy performs was very strange, but then also
Mm-hmm.
interesting. Like he's like this weird, smirky, smiling kind of like dude. I don't know. It was interesting, and it was not at all like in the book where he's not very smart in the book either, but he seems a little more like your typical football
Yeah.
jock. Where here he's like, I mean, even in the movie, he like writes a poem or something, or he
Yeah.
steals a poem.
Yeah, he
So like,
steals a
there's
poem.
there's like this weird like artsiness to him that's
Yeah.
not in the book at all.
Yeah.
But I found it interesting, and I guess the big two we need to talk about is Carrie and Carrie's mom. What did you think
Yeah.
about those two?
Um, well, okay, I guess, okay, so Carrie specifically, I
Mm-hmm.
feel like it wasn't a bad choice, but again, it's almost like they Hollywooded it up, you know, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Like, kind of like how we were talking about before when we were actually just reviewing the book, and it's like, oh, well, I didn't even realize Carrie was supposed to be this like chunky, just like normal, average looking teenager, like with pimples and all this stuff,
Mm-hmm.
because the 2013 version that I remember seeing, and like you know, she's like an actress, so it's just like she looks
Yeah.
like she's pretty, and it's almost like they just try to like mute her a little bit to where you're still like, oh, this is a beautiful girl, but for some reason people are picking on her. And that's like how I felt with the Carrie in the movie, because she was still very pretty and, you know, very thin, so she didn't really give me the vibe that like reading the book, like where you could look at her and be like, oh, I see why kids are picking on her, because there were
Yeah.
other girls in the movie that I was like, that's actually more like what I would picture Carrie to. Like there was
Yeah.
like a chunkier girl, and she was a
Mm-hmm.
brunette, and so maybe like if she was blonde and had the longer hair, then it would have made more sense. But I'm like, really, almost that's more like the
Mm-hmm.
embodiment of how Stephen King describes Carrie than how this actress describe, or like, you know, how she portrays Carrie. And then for the mother, I guess the actress, again, again, also I pictured the mother being chubby too. Like I pictured her
Yeah.
being like
Yeah.
more similar to like Carrie, like just a short, like chubby, just bitch of a
Mm-hmm.
woman. So the actual actress didn't fit the bill that I had in my head, but I didn't hate her. Like it's like, okay, once I've seen her, I'm like, all right, I guess that could work too. But the actual acting was not at all like she was not like the way we were shitting the fuck on, you know, on her last week, talking about like how Stephen King kind of like dropped the ball and just like made her so evil. It's like we
Yeah.
didn't really get that in the movie. It's almost like, and I guess we kind of get that more as the movie goes along, but it's almost like what we were saying, where like he kind of missed that aspect of like her being a mother still.
Yeah.
Where we kind of got that a little bit more in the book, but then, I mean, in the movie, but then the movie dropped off a lot of the evil shit. It's almost like they just made her seem, I mean, like, they did the religious thing, but in the movie, it wasn't really like,
And severe.
it wasn't, yeah, like, it wasn't as obvious that this is like, this shit is like traumatizing, like the level of
Yeah.
like mental illness type of like religious thing. Like it didn't really seem like that in the movie. If I had just watched the movie, I would have just been like, oh, she's just some like crazy crazy like Bible thumping lady, but in the
Mm-hmm.
book it's like she's like an evil Bible thumping lady, if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
I agree with you as well. Like I think like the actress Sissy Spacek who plays Carrie, I think she has like a very interesting face, and
Yeah.
like that is a cool choice because she's like kind of covered in like freckles and stuff. So like
Yeah,
there's at
I
least
did like the
something
freckles. Yeah.
something that makes her a little different. The one thing I didn't like about her was her performance. Like I don't know. I didn't imagine Carrie acting the way she acted. And like it's like this very like there was like an over performance of like, oh, don't look at me. Oh,
Yeah.
don't look, and like
Yeah.
putting her hands on her face, and I don't
Yeah.
know,
She
it
was
felt a
too
little
weak.
too.
She was too weak for me. Carrie was not that weak in the book.
Yeah, Carrie was like, yeah, like she seemed more like I don't know, like you make fun of this kid and then they're like angry at you, and they're like
Yeah,
swollen
yeah, not like,
face.
oh, I'm about to go cry about this
Yeah.
type shit. Yeah.
And yeah, I didn't feel that at all. And then
No.
from the mom character, I thought it was just her whole performance was very cheesy and like obvious, and yeah, I didn't really feel any like sense of like, okay, she's fucked up, and
Yeah, none of that. None of that.
yeah.
None of that.
And then I guess we can start breaking down the actual events, because this movie like strips a lot of the stuff out
Oh
and then
my
adds
God.
a couple little things.
Yeah.
I guess to start from the beginning, we do start in the school with this like slow-mo shot of a lot of naked young
Yeah.
women running around. The steam is like everywhere. I thought it was a cool idea and a cool shot to like, I guess, capture the vibe of these like the 70s kind of school showers or whatever. Even when I went into school, there was no joint showers or anything like that, but
Yeah.
I had heard about it, and I knew that was like a popular thing back in the day, which is crazy to think about. But I don't know, just because it's a bunch of like high schoolers and like kids and stuff and like teachers and like, I don't know, kind of weird. But I did like kind of the setup, and then yeah, we see her, and then she has her period. And I don't know, I did not like how this whole scene, I don't know if it was the editing or the pacing, and like this is probably like my biggest complaint of the movie, is like everything feels really rushed and confusing. But
Yeah.
like she starts having her period, she like immediately runs to a girl and like starts grabbing at her.
Yeah.
Which that doesn't happen in the book, and
Not
that
at
totally
all.
doesn't make sense.
It doesn't track. It doesn't track. And I feel like that made it like it took away from how fucked up the girls' reactions were. Almost to me, because that makes like it almost makes sense why people would be yelling at her, because why did you just run over here and touch me with your fucking period blood, bitch? Like,
Yeah.
of course we're gonna be like, bitch, what the fuck? We're like really like in this moment in the book, like Carrie is like having an existential crisis. Like she thinks she's fucking dying in the
Yes.
shower alone, and like almost like looking around like, what the fuck? And then people are like, well, we're gonna pick on you, like, oh, Carrie's had her period, like, oh, it's just like running down her leg. And in the movie, it just like, it was not, it just didn't, I don't know, the scene didn't feel the same.
And then the way she and then like all the like criticisms for the actors or performances, there's like a saying, like a bad actor, that there's no actual bad actors, there's just bad performances, and that's because of a bad director, because the director tells him what to do. So it's I'm kind of putting all the blame on the director here, but like that when she's getting like tossed all the tampons and pads and stuff, and she's like in the corner like crying, I don't know, it just felt like way over the top, where she's like screaming and like grabbing at the like tile walls and like
Yeah. Yeah.
I was like,
And
okay,
I really feel like in the book it was more of an internal crisis. It was really, she was like so just confused, and it just seemed like she's having these like, what the fuck, but she's just standing there like trying to figure out what the fuck, and everyone else is making this a huge big deal. Let's throw tampons, let's, where in the movie she's like screaming and just being so extra, and it was like, that's really again, that just kind of takes away from it, like that really takes away from how unnecessary it was for these girls to be coming at her, because of course if she's making a huge big spectacle of it, I'm fucking crying, screaming, putting my period blood on other people, then it makes
Yep.
sense for the girls to have just as big of a reaction. But in the book, it's really just not that. It's like she's just trying to figure out what the fuck is going on, and people
Yeah.
are throwing tampons at her.
The one thing
Yeah.
that I wanted to bring up on that I also really disliked, and again, this is like the direction, this is the editing, this is the pacing, and this is the shit like that I hate about adaptations. Like this scene was written out so like thoroughly. Like you didn't really have to do anything. You just had to like literally do as it explains it, because the timing in the book feels perfect. You know, like it made sense when everyone was making fun of her, throwing tampons. When the teacher entered, the teacher screaming at Carrie, also being a part of the people making fun of her a little bit by like being frustrated. We didn't get any of that here.
None of that. Also,
And then-
also to cut you off, why is the teacher's name changed?
Oh shit! What is the teacher's
Did you
name
notice?
in the movie?
In the movie, it's Miss Collins.
Ooh, I bet the director was like, I don't know how to pronounce this.
Like they
jargon.
probably said exactly. That's what I was thinking, and I did not. I was like, I meant to cut you off, but at the same time, I did not. I just needed to put that out there because the first time they
didn't
said her
even
name, I
notice.
said, "What? That is not her name." But I thought the same thing. I said they probably just didn't know how to say Desjardins. So
Wow, yeah,
yeah,
you're
it's
right.
Miss Collins in the movie. But anyways, proceed. Yes, we
Wow.
did not. We got none of that in the book and or in the movie. And I was thinking the same thing. I'm like, she was supposed to be kind of like chiming in, and although we did get the scene where she like slaps Carrie in the face, it made sense again in the movie why she slaps Carrie in the face, because Carrie's fucking screaming bloody
Yeah, that makes
murder,
sense.
right? So it almost makes sense, like, hey, I'm just trying to slap you out of it. What's going on? What's wrong? Whereas in the book, it's like the teacher's just as bad as everybody else in those moments, and Carrie just needs help.
Yeah.
And we're not really getting that.
And I don't know, I imagine the PE teacher in the book for me read as way more, like, I don't know, just the way King describes her and like her physique as like this, you know, like just very, like, I don't know, I kind of imagine her as like a very thin woman, but like very brute-ish.
Yeah,
Like,
listen. So of course, again, I watched it with my wife. I was like, I'm not mad at this actress, but I said, in my head, she was a lot more gay. And by that, I think we mean the same thing by that. I'm like, this teacher is too girly for me. Like, she's too, like, and I don't know if I just had that in my head because, like, PE teacher, blah, 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 but she was, like, a lot less, like, feminine and, like, I don't know. Yeah, like, brute, I think, is a good way to put it, because I feel like we're saying the same things. So I was surprised when I've seen this actress, when I've seen the teacher, and then not just in that scene, but just throughout the movie, it just was becoming more and more evident that, like, this is not at all the type of teacher I had in my head.
Like, I remember I had a PE teacher that, like, reminds me exactly of, I guess maybe that's why I imagine her, like, in the book. And yeah, it just totally has that energy and vibe of, like, I don't know, like, I was always, like, kind of scared of her.
Yes,
because she, like, controlled a room, and that's what I felt in the book. And then even in the parts in the movie where she's, like, trying to control the girls, like, did I say
she's too
stop
soft?
running? Yeah, and I'm like, this isn't her, you know? Like, I don't know. And, like, and that whole, but the one thing that I really hated in this part was, I mean, going back to the musical cues, because in the book, this was like such a cool little Easter egg thing, is her using her powers, you know, around in the public or whatever. And then, like, the way she pops the light bulb, it was like, jank, jank, jank. Light bulb pops. Everyone is like, what? And then no one cares. And it just, like, the way it was edited was so bad. Like, literally one of the worst edited scenes. And then I was like, all right, maybe that's just that scene. But I guess to move us to the next scene that happens, where Carrie is sitting right outside the principal's office and the PE teacher's in there. That whole setup made no sense. I was like, why?
Yeah.
Why is he doing this? And then, but when she goes in there, and the same shit happens with the ashtray, it's like, ching, ching, ching. And the ashtray's all wiggling, and then, like, it's so obvious that it, like, flips in, like, 5 circles in the air. And I'm like, this is so fucking stupid. Like, this man wrote the whole scene for you. Like, it's done. It's written.
Yeah, it wasn't. Oh, and to backtrack, I had a thought. I'm like, I don't know if you've ever seen Glee, but if any of our listeners have ever seen Glee, the way that like there's the teacher, the cheer teacher, and I think she's the PE teacher, but it's played by Jane Lynch. Like
Mm.
that's how I pictured this
Yes.
PE teacher, because
I
in
just
the
looked her
in
up. Yep.
Glee she was so like she's always blowing her whistle, she's always got something smart to
Yep.
say, she was scary, she like, but funny, but like, so Jane Lynch, that's how I pictured this PE teacher being. And
Yep.
she was like, this PE teacher reminded me more of like Matilda, like Miss Honey, like the teacher in that movie,
Uh,
where she's just so soft and like sweet and just, I'm just trying to help you, and like that's not how she's portrayed in the book. So I thought that was an interesting like choice. But back to what you were saying, yeah, that whole
mhm.
scene in the honestly, all her scenes with her powers, I was like, that's just so cheesy, and
Mhm.
it doesn't feel that way in the book, but it comes off that way in the movie, because it's like, yeah, like the with the ashtray specifically, I'm like, she was staring at the ashtray, and it's like moving and moving and moving and moving, and then bam, yeah, like takes like flips like fucking across the whole damn room while she's storming out, and it's like, it didn't really it didn't feel like that in the book. It almost felt like,
Yeah.
oh damn, like the ashtray just fell off the table. It like, it felt so much more like normal, but Carrie would be the only one
Mhm.
thinking like, oh shit, maybe I did that, whereas like in the movie it was so just like obvious, if that makes sense. Like that's how it felt to me. I just was like, I don't know. Again, I was like trying to like watch it like almost like with a grain of salt, because I'm like, I don't know what their capabilities were in the 70s. So I'm like, well, maybe this was the best they could do. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know, like what can I
No.
compare it to, because I'm like, I know if I watch this, like I'm curious to see the 2013 version and
Yeah.
see like how did they portray her telekinetic abilities in that movie versus what they did in the 20 or in the 1976 one. But I was like
Yeah.
really just trying to make excuses for it. I'm like, well, it's the 70s, so like maybe, but I just think it wasn't a well like thought out scene.
Which that's like what disturbs me, because like both of these scenes were so well written, and then
Mhm.
like
Mhm.
the stuff that I really liked and that I thought any director would jump at, because it's, like a good movie has good dialogue and good, conversational scenes, and you get to have actors actually like act, and the whole conversation around the event is totally cut out of this movie, like
Mhm.
the whole like what happened,
Yeah.
the principal, and then like I don't know, it's just like all that was just cut so short.
Yeah.
But then he kept like other things like the Cassie thing. But then because everything else was cut so short, the Cassie thing just felt like really dumb to me.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
why? Like it just felt like tacked on.
Yeah.
And then like he added another thing that wasn't in the book, which was the principal staring at the PE teacher's like bloodstained shorts and being like
Mhm.
grossed out by it. But
Mhm.
then we never get like a conclusion to that kind of like
Yeah.
emotional theme or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know. It was just so strange. And then we didn't have like another boy in the hallway waiting to
No.
be punished. I don't know. It was just so strange. Like the book, just that scene felt way more cinematic in the book, and
Mhm.
then in the movie. And then right after this we exit, and she's walking home. And again, we have like this cheesy scene of this kid like riding a bike and then
That shit
falling
was
over.
annoying. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. That had to be like bottom 5 scenes in the
Mm, mm.
in this movie. I mean, that was so bad.
It
It
was,
was
yeah, it
just
was so
it felt
pointless.
unnecessary. It just felt like really like what?
Yeah,
Like
and then just like chink chink, kid falls
yeah,
over.
and he falls.
Ow!
Yeah, and it was just like, what the fuck? Because first of all, he had already annoyed me when he was riding like so oddly between the trees, and I was like, what the
Mm,
fuck is the purpose of this person? Didn't even realize it was about to be someone that was about to say some slick shit to her. So I'm like, what?
mm.
What is this? Why is he doing this? And then when he says like whatever he says about Carrie, and then like yeah, he falls off his bike. I'm like, that was not a good. That
Yeah.
was just yeah, it was just
Mm-mm.
cheesy. It was just like not it was unnecessary. Like
Yeah.
we didn't
And the
really need
whole
that scene.
the whole point of her like walking home was her questioning if she did blow the light bulb and if she did move the ashtray. And then she looks at a house and then she pauses and like flexes a window and then it doesn't, but it kind of like mirrors like a
does
shine.
something. Yes.
Yeah, like that was supposed to be us connecting to her like actual psyche. And then that was totally skipped over.
Yep.
And then actually, like early, I think somewhere in between all this stuff, we get like a scene that's really weird and totally could have been cut, which was like the mom, Carrie's mom, being at
so
Sue's
glad
house.
you brought this up because what?
I was like, what the fuck is going on?
Why is like, seriously, with Sue's what? Mom? Yes, and I no think reason. like for no reason, and I feel like that right there is just such a stark difference because what like. It's like in the book, we just kind of get that it's like Carrie White and Margaret White or whatever are the fucking weirdos of the town. Nobody's talking to them. And Carrie and her mom is not finna be at nobody's house just talking it up. Like that just would not happen. Hanging because out. She just thinks everyone's the fucking devil. It wouldn't be like, oh, you should go to church. Oh, you should read the Bible more. She's not fucking talking to other people. The only thing that we know Carrie's mom does is be a bitch to Carrie and go to work. That's all we know, right? Like there is no like I'm socializing. So I thought that was such a weird scene because I'm like, no, like this would never happen. I mean, like not in the book. Like it would not happen. Like nobody would let her into their house because she's supposed to be this fucking weird ass bitch that everyone's like, why is this lady like this? And she's supposed to just be like so psychotic that like she would never go to someone's house and I would never let her in my house.
Yep.
But she's like normal, like having a normal conversation. And then they just threw in that like she's like talking about Jesus. So it's like, what?
Yep. And then like what made me upset about that scene was like the weird, again, like this is just like a weird direction choice, which was like Sue's mom goes out to somewhere, I guess to answer her phone or some shit. And then she's like flipping through a Bible. And I was like, this looks like a person who's never held a Bible in their life. They're just like flipping, looking at one page, flipping back. And like, you don't, like, what is she doing? Like, what does she look at? Like, if someone who is this, like, you know, into religion, like she is portrayed in the book and even in the movie, like, you're not flipping through like the whole entire book. You know, like you would know what you want to look at and you would find it because it's like marked and it's all in sections and I don't know, it's just so dumb. It's like I hate when like movies have like someone who's like intelligent about something and then they're like, oh, let me look at page 77 and it's like, bro, that's not how books work. Like they go in order. So
right. Yeah, I don't know. This director definitely lost me. Well, first of all, it lost me on a lot of stuff, and I guess we'll get, because we're still like at the beginning of the movie, but lost me on a lot of stuff. But overall, like, just did not do a good job with Carrie's mom. Like, just because again, that was such a huge part of the fucking book that I feel like it should have translated at least somewhat into the movie, and it didn't. Like, it just felt like her mom felt like normal, quote unquote. She just felt like she's more religious maybe than other people, if that makes sense. She didn't come off like this, like literally you are of the fucking devil. Like, I know, and some of the scenes were like verbatim, like I felt like I remember reading these exact words, like where he's having her say the things that the mom in the book was saying, but it wasn't fitting because everything else she was saying, all the other scenes didn't add up to where now you want to have her say these important things that happen in the book, but it doesn't actually like fit this movie character. So it wasn't like it lost significance.
Yes. And that's like the thing that I feel like a lot of people don't understand when they're like adapting. It's like you strip one thing out, it changes the entire vibe of everything. And I think this director was like, well, I'm just going to keep all the parts that I think are good and it's still going to play the same. And it doesn't at all. It doesn't at all. Then I guess after this, I guess we get a scene inside Carrie's house with the mom, right? Like right after she goes home. Yeah, and then I don't even remember exactly what they talk about or what happens. Oh, I know she goes upstairs at some point and then she breaks the mirror that she's looking at. I did like how the mirror like looked as it was warping. Just like the special effect I thought looked cool. But just in general, like that also felt kind of dumb. I don't think that happens in the book.
Yeah,
I don't
didn't
remember.
remember that. When I saw it, I was like, oh, I don't really remember that happening, but okay.
And then, like, it broke my brain, like, logic-wise, because it shatters, the mom runs up, like, what's going on, Carrie? And then, like, the mirror's obviously cracked, like, to all hell, and the mom's like, well,
oh,
there's
like,
nothing
I don't
happened.
know what happened. Yeah, I was confused by that, too.
And then I was like, how the hell
what?
is that mirror glass sticking up? Like, does she,
How's
like,
it sticking?
have glue?
I don't know. And then I'm like, is she holding it together with her mental powers? But then I feel like if that was the case, then after the mom left, it would have just went back to being broken or something. I don't know. Like, it didn't make sense because I'm like, okay, I thought the mom was about to yell at her about the fucking mirror. Like, whether she saw it in pieces on the table or the floor or whatever, or just saw it cracked to all fucking hell. Like, I thought she would have said something. And instead it was just like, oh, I don't know what happened here. I guess nothing. I must have just heard nothing. Bitch, you don't see that fucking mirror? Because I do. You know? Like, I'm like, that shit was not at all, like... And that would have been crazy if she had broke the mirror and then her mom came up there and the mirror was fixed. I would have been like, oh, shit. I don't know what happened. But nah, that shit was just cracked.
Yeah. And then one other thing I want to get into, I'm curious, like, what did you imagine their house to look like? Because I also didn't really like the look of their house.
Nope.
Like, it felt very obvious. Like, there's a big carpet, like, I guess painting thingy carpet or like whatever, like it looked like some sort of clothing material, cotton textile thing of like the Last Dinner of Christ or whatever that was like hanging. It just felt very obvious, and like all the candles, and like from the book I imagine, you know, like some trailer trash, kind of like very messy, dirty, and then a lot of like Christian stuff or paraphernalia or whatever, but like unclean and like mold and stuff like that.
Yeah, I agree. But also I would say that the outside of the house looked like a crack house to me, and I didn't think the outside of it looked like a crack house, but maybe that's just me. I'm like, that shit kind of looked like a fucking crack house. When we actually saw the house, I'm like, oh, okay. But yeah, no, the vibe of the house also was her room upstairs in the attic in the book, because that part threw me off. I'm like, oh, I didn't even realize her bedroom was... I don't know if he ever even gave us a detail of that, but I did not realize.
Oh yeah, I think they said it was like a 1-story house.
Yeah, I don't remember her like being upstairs
like that.
And then like her mom's on the phone and she's like, you know, like she's upstairs like listening to the stuff her mom is doing downstairs and then coming down when the coast is clear. Like, I don't really remember that, so I'm like, I don't think that was a thing. So that part I was like, oh, okay, like I guess like I don't know. The house, it didn't give me the same vibes. Also, there just wasn't enough. There was candles every fucking where. I did notice there was candles everywhere in that house, and that's not how I pictured it. I don't know.
It's like, what do Christian people do? I guess they have candles. They have a lot of candles. I don't know.
It's like the house was too organized, because in the book, to me, it gave like manic vibes, where it's just like... Yeah, basically how you said, like, just in disarray. There's just shit everywhere. There's probably like Jesus paraphernalia in every corner, and also I know Carrie in the book talked about like the different like paintings up on the walls. And now that I'm like thinking back to the movie, I'm like, I don't really remember outside of candles. Like, they didn't really highlight anything aside from the little like closet that Carrie's in, and like the little bit of paraphernalia in there, but that's all I remember.
And then one other thing that happens in the movie that didn't happen in the book was like, there's a part, I think, this is in the beginning. She opens a book, and it's like the sins of woman, and it's like a whole page drawing or whatever, and she's like slapping her with it. I was like, okay, that didn't happen in the in the book. And then I was like, would the book actually say the sins of women? Like, I don't know. That's a
That shit, I forgot about that scene. That was weird. There was a lot of scenes that I was just watching like with one eyebrow raised, and I'm just like, what? Like, what's happening? Like, almost like you're trying too hard. I would have rather you just like did exactly what Stephen King did. Like, I'd rather
just don't do it.
Like,
just like you didn't do anything else.
Yeah, like it just didn't seem necessary. That was a weird scene for sure. Yeah.
And then we have no neighbors, apparently. So that's something they also cut. Because it seems like, yeah, like there's no one, like there's
Oh
houses
yeah, yeah,
beside her house, but
yeah.
it's almost like implied that no one lives on this street or something,
Yeah.
or like
And it kind of looks like
everyone's.
it's just there, like by itself,
Hmm.
from the outside. It doesn't really look like there's neighbors either. It kind of just looks like a one, like single, like plot of land, like, oh,
Yeah.
just one house there and there's nothing right around it, which is different.
Yeah. And then after this, we go back to the school. We have, I forgot what her new name is, but the old Miss Desjardins,
Miss Collins. I was like,
Miss
what? Yeah.
Miss Collins briefing the kids. Then we also get like a brief scene of like Carrie looking through the window, which I
Yeah.
was like, okay. She's briefing the young women about the things that they did, and they have the whole conversation, and they're going to get punishment, all this kind of stuff. And then like this scene did not play out as well as
Nope.
it did in the novel because they like eliminated the idea of Chris having a lawyer dad.
Yes.
That eliminated a lot of the tension that was in the scene, and then it was just like this bratty girl. What did you think about that whole sequence? And then also just attack on the like PE workout stuff.
Okay, so I'll go in order of what you've asked. I did not like the scene in the movie because I agree it took away from why Chris was a bitch. It made it seem like she
Her
okay,
privilege.
so first of all, yeah, it took away from that because she's like, "Oh, I'm not going to this shit." And then, of course, in the book, Miss Desjardins is like, or aka Miss Collins is like, "Oh, well, if you don't go, like, you're not going to go to prom." And in the book, Chris literally does not give a fuck. She doesn't go. Like, Chris is like, "I'm not going to this shit." And she's not going to be able to take away my thing, which is why we get the whole scene with her dad later on talking to the principal, because he's like, "You're not going to take away her prom tickets. I don't care if she didn't go to the fucking, to the detention. She's going to go to prom. Like, I don't care about anything else. She's going to go to prom."
Yeah.
And so, like,
Yeah.
that scene, like, it took away from Chris's, like, I want to say power, but not her power. Like, it's like what she thinks is her power in her head. Like, well, I don't care. I'm
Her
going to do
entitlement.
whatever I want. And you know what I'm saying? And so, like, that's it. We didn't get that in the movie. And so I feel like one of the things that I didn't like about the movie was that they all made it, the way that this played out made it seem like the reason Chris doesn't fuck with Carrie is because Carrie is the reason she's not going to prom. And in reality, because that was too direct. In reality, Chris knew that she could go to detention or not go to detention. And she decided, I'm not going to go to detention, and I'm not going to and I'm going to go to prom. And really, it was just like, no, bitch, you got in trouble because you didn't go to detention, because you had an opportunity to go to prom. It doesn't have anything to do with Carrie White. You did this to yourself. And then this is just kind of like, well, it's a direct correlation between I bullied Carrie and now I'm not going to prom. Or, you know what I'm saying? Or now I'm in detention or whatever. And then as far as the actual detention scene, unnecessary, didn't need it. Just overall, that was my thought. I'm just like, that's one of the things that I say, like, this director, some of these scenes were so long and drawn out, and I didn't understand why. And this was not one of the worst ones. Actually, the worst one we'll get to later that I thought was just so drawn out for literally no reason. But, like, this one was just long. It seemed like a scene I didn't need, and then on top of it being a scene I didn't need, it was so drawn out.
Yeah. Especially when, like, he's cut out so much other stuff.
Yeah,
and then, it went on.
I would have rather had the scene with the lawyer than that.
Yeah. I liked the scene, but I didn't like the scene for the movie. Like, I just liked the music. It was, kind of fun and funny.
Yeah, it was.
And then, all these girls are, like, upset that they're working out. I mean, the way it's shot is kind of weird. Feels kind of leery. Like, I don't know, there's something odd going on there that makes me feel a little bit uncomfortable. But the idea of the scene, I enjoy. Just like kids getting punished by working out. Like, I kept thinking, it's like, damn, like, I want to go back in the military so I can be forced to work out. Because, like, I miss that shit. Like, I miss, like, I wish I would have gotten more trouble and just made to work out because
Yes.
I don't know. I liked working out like that. That shit's fun to me. But yeah, like I was also confused like how it was shot though, because it was like the framing. I don't know if you noticed, but like the cameras like always center on the teacher's like crotch as it's like panning left to right, and I was like, okay, this is kind of weird.
Interesting.
And it was just like I don't know, it's just like this weird kind of pervy male gaze kind of vibe is that I was getting in the sequence. And then yeah, it doesn't really amount or add to anything when they're not like I mean yeah they're doing like their workouts, but it wasn't like it didn't reach the level of intensity that I imagined in the book that it did. Because like in the book I imagined they were all like sore as fuck, like they could not walk.
Yeah.
And here they were just like running in place.
Yeah.
And doing like fun, you know, like again this is like the dude director, like he's making these girls do like workouts that move their body, like their breasts specifically. I noticed, so I was like, okay, these are like workouts that aren't targeted to like make you suffer, because that would be like I forgot what it's called, but when you do like you like jump up, you do a squat, you go down,
those
do a
burpees, like burpees.
Yeah, like make anyone do 20 burpees and they'll fucking vomit and die.
That's facts. That's facts.
That's what I imagined in the book. And in this scene is just they're doing like all these cute exercises, and I'm like, okay, this is not that cool.
You know what? That's a good point that you bring up, because now I'm like, damn, was it only put in there so that men had a reason to watch women's titties bounce around? Like, you know what I'm saying? Because I'm like, I agree. Like, it wasn't. And I was thinking that too. I was like, this is not very strenuous, like, to be detention, and the way that she made it seem like, oh, well, I'm going to work you guys out because it's my detention and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, like, they were just kind of chilling, you know? Like, of course, yeah, they're doing the workouts, but they're like, no one was like throwing up on the sidelines.
Yeah, that's what
they weren't even really sweaty.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? The girls weren't like sweaty. They weren't like breathing hard. There wasn't even an end to the scene where it's like, ugh, I'm so fucking exhausted from doing this. It literally was just titties bouncing. Like, now that you say it, I'm like, yeah, like like what was the purpose of that? But yeah, so that's a good point. That's a good point.
And that's just like just a little random tangent. I remember like it was in like high school. I was like very obsessed with like my hair for like a year, and I was like, I need my hair to look a certain way, and like I would wear a hat, and then it would like flatten out to a certain degree because it would be all puffy. And then I would remember like that year in high school, like PE was like my second or third period class, and it would like piss me off because you know they'd make us go outside and run, and then like my hair would get all frizzy and like poof up, and I'm like, fuck, my whole day's ruined. I look like an idiot. Not that anyone was looking at me, but I remember that being like a point of stress. So like that's the other thing that I thought would have been a cool thing, because, you know, all these girls are all like made up and like they do their hair and shit. And like imagine, you know, before like you get made up to go to school, and then the PE teacher's like, well, your first period is going to be detention now, and I'm going to fuck up your whole your whole look, like all that shit you did to your hair, I'm gonna ruin it by like making you sweat it out and like all that kind of shit, which wasn't done here. But I think, I don't know, that would have been a cool little factor. But yeah, then after this, I think so we don't get any of the Chris's dad's argument with the principal scene. That's all deleted. What we do get that I don't think is in the book is Carrie going to the library and like checking out books about telekinesis and stuff.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I wasn't like bothered by it, but I guess what did you think about it? Like, it didn't really add anything.
I thought unnecessary, honestly. It's like, okay, I guess Carrie is... So my thought process on it was, I was like, well, maybe they just had to put it in because, of course, like, something that we don't get from the movie. Like, the movie is very much so, like, third person type shit where it's just like, I mean, we're basically just watching things happen, but we're not really getting any one or two people's like point of view. It's just like we're just hovering over like watching shit happen. And so like I'm like, in the book we don't get any of like, oh, Carrie is looking up like, oh, I am telekinetic, I know what telekinesis is. The girl didn't even know what her period was, but now we have a scene of her going to the library and like searching up telekinesis. Like, how would she know what the fuck telekinesis is? But anyway, so it's like, so we don't get that in the book. We get her like practicing where she's flexing, like, and that's her term,
Yeah.
like she's flexing and like she's learning how to use her powers. And that's something that we don't get in the movie that I think would have made more sense to have her, to show her doing that, where it's like she's getting comfortable using her powers. And this is how we get to the end of the story where she's able to do shit because she's been practicing. She doesn't know what
Yep.
the fuck it is, but she's practicing using her little powers that she's got. Whereas in the movie, it's just, oh, now I know it's telekinesis. Well, how does that really, like, just because I know there's a name to it, how does that actually assist me with anything? Is she practicing on her powers? Wouldn't know, because the only fucking time we see her do some shit is the light bulb, the damn ashtray, the mirror, and then like at the end when stuff starts happening, then we see you know, her use her powers. But we really didn't see any growth in the movie besides, oh, I now have looked up telekinesis in my high school library.
Yeah. I agree. And then oh yeah, right after the PE thing, we do get a scene with Sue and her boyfriend Tommy. He's like running on a track or something that doesn't happen in the book. And then she tells him like, "Hey, can you do me a favor?" They like walk behind the bleachers and stuff. And again, like in the book, when she asks him about asking Carrie to prom, I think it's right after they have like sex or something, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
In the car. And like that was a cool moment, I feel like. And then here it's just like, also that's like the other weird thing, that this whole movie like totally like deletes all the sexual scenes besides the Chris and Billy I guess blowjob thing that happens early on. But like every other like sexual thing is kind of like gone or erased. I guess what did you think about how, because I guess just to tack on, because this is like directly tied to it, the principal finds out about Carrie being asked because she's like hiding behind like this bleacher or something. They have a whole conversation that's not in the book. And then there's a whole bathroom like sequence between them. And then just to add on this final bit is the principal finds Sue and Tommy and like puts them into a room and is like challenging them about why they're doing it.
Yeah.
What did you think about all that? Because that was a huge change.
All right. I didn't like it. I didn't like it. So I didn't like, I don't know. Okay. So it felt more confusing, I guess, in the movie why Sue decided to have her boyfriend ask Carrie out. Like it made more, I mean, in the same way that we were already saying, like, it doesn't make sense that was her like thought process. It still in the book made more sense, like how she came to this conclusion, because we know that she feels like fucking shit for like making fun of Carrie. And we didn't get that scene where Sue is like at that like kid, wherever they go, and they're like drinking like root beers and shit. Like, we didn't get that scene. Yeah, that bar thing with like her and Chris and like all the other like popular kids. We didn't really get that scene. So that was really in the book where we kind of like established that Sue had already been ashamed of herself over doing this stuff and had started to process like how can she make this better. And so in the movie, it just seemed like random. It felt more random. Like she's just decided like. And I know we had the scene where Miss Collins or whatever is like, when the period stuff is happening, where she comes in and she's shaking Sue and she's like, Sue, like, why are you doing this? Like, she's having this moment where it's kind of like inferred that like, oh, maybe Sue doesn't normally do this stuff. But like without the background of the book, I don't think I would have understood what was happening. I think I would have just been confused as to why she had decided. And truly it would have felt a little bit more like it was part of the plan, like, because this movie just makes it seem like everything is just part of the plan, like this big like fuck you to Carrie White, and in the book it's not really that. But anyways, so I thought the scene was weird, and then the fact that like Carrie says no and Tommy's just like, well, whatever, and Carrie runs away, and then like she has this whole fucking conversation with Miss Collins or whatever, and I'm like, Miss Collins was not this person in the book. This is what we wished Miss Collins would have been like, or Miss Desjardins or whatever. Like all it would have taken in the book was for someone to maybe show this type of concern to Carrie and stick up for her, whereas like in the book we don't get that. And then now all of a sudden we've got this like this mother figure-y type of teacher that's coming in, and it's like, oh well, you know, like maybe try some makeup and put on some lipstick, and oh well, he's a cute boy, so just go and have fun, and like, you know, blah blah blah. And then coming to her aid on the back end and like sitting these two kids down and being like, what the fuck are you guys trying to do with Carrie? That stuff doesn't happen in the book, and that's the stuff that needs to happen in the book to try to, you know, that maybe could have prevented what ends up happening at the end of the movie if Carrie would have known that somebody was on her side. And in the movie, it's like they put somebody on her side, but it's weird and it doesn't necessarily make a difference in the end. You know?
Yeah.
It doesn't make a difference in the end because of everything else weird that the director does in the movie, honestly.
Yeah.
It's like how I wish she would have been in the book, but then the outcome doesn't change because
he doesn't pay it off. Yeah, he doesn't wrap it up with like Miss Collins or whatever running to Carrie in the middle of the freak out and like having a 1-to-1. Like that would have been a cool finale, and then Carrie being like, "No, this is the last time," and then killing her as well. Like even her death at the end was very strange.
That was the weirdest shit. But anyways.
Yeah, but before that, but I agree. I do like how the director at least tried to like deepen her concern. I think that was a smart move. And then the asking out thing, I found strange. I liked it more in the book because there was the concern was that Tommy was going to be late to class. And that was like something Carrie was like worried about. I was like, no. And then she's like, you're going to be late to class. You're going to be late to class. You're going to be late to class. And he's like, well, I'm not going to class until you say yes. And they kind of like try to replicate it with Tommy going to her house and then Carrie's mom being like talking in the background, which that doesn't make any sense. Like what we know of Margaret White, like she would have been at the door immediately and shoved Carrie into the closet for
absolutely
having dirty pillows or something. Absolutely. I don't know, like something stupid. So that made no sense. And then also, what was the other thing I was going to say? I totally forgot. I'm feeling my drinks. I guess to jump to the next big sequence, because I'm starting to forget like exactly how this movie rolled out, because it cuts out so much.
It
like
really
I don't know
does.
if you felt this. Like this movie was like, the movie was already ending, and I was like, damn, like they sped through everything.
Yes.
And I guess another big thing they sped through and I found very disappointing was the pig sequence.
The pig scene. Yes. Yes. Yes.
What did you think about
also
that?
Why
then,
was
like,
Chris there in the movie? Like I
have no idea.
They really made okay. All right. So did not like how quickly they went through the pig scene, and the reason I don't like it is because that was the first part of the book that was like, this is gore. This is horror. This is some terrifying shit. Like the amount of violence, just like the disregard in that moment, like of these teenage boys, like bludgeoning these pigs and like draining them and putting their blood in buckets and like, oh shit, like the first one only filled up a bucket and a half. Let's kill a whole second pig just for another half of a fucking bucket of blood because 1.5 is not enough, and then just let it bleed out the rest of the way. Like, we didn't get that in the movie, and I was sad that like literally it was like they showed someone swinging the sledgehammer but cut away. We don't even get like splash of blood. It's just like sound, so I just thought, like, I'm like, for a horror movie, I don't care if it's the 1970s, you couldn't put more into that.
Yeah, you didn't even have to show it, but like at least show the bucket filling with like some red liquid.
Like we didn't get any of that.
Yeah. And then it was just so dumb because like all these guys were dumb, and then Billy was dumb, and then
why was Chris there? Chris was not. That's another thing, is that the movie made it seem like Chris was just the fucking ringleader, and the book was not like that. She was part of the plan, obviously. She hated Carrie White, and we knew that. But another thing is that the movie made it seem like this whole thing was only specifically for Carrie White. We are getting back at Carrie White. And really, in the book, they were going to drop that blood on whoever the fuck won prom king and queen. Like, it was more so, like, of course, Chris, her mindset was like, all right, like, I hope it's, I don't even think, but in that moment, did they even know that she was, yeah, I guess they knew. But I'm like,
yeah,
they were just going to do the shit just to do the shit. And yes, Chris wanted to get back at Carrie White, but they really made it seem like she was the mastermind behind all of this stuff. And really, like, Billy was just fucking, like, yeah, he got asked to do this, but he wanted to do this shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's like, fuck yeah, like, me and my friends, we finna go slaughter some fucking pigs and drain their blood, and, like, this is fun.
And he didn't even get his, like, standout famous line, pig's blood for a pig.
Right, with like, the little giggle, like, nothing. And so I don't know, like, I didn't like how they made it seem like, because then it felt like Chris was just controlling the whole situation. Like, oh, we're going to go out here, like, I'm making this guy who's, like, my boyfriend, and just, like, he'll do whatever for me, like, bludgeon these pigs, and we're going to use this blood for my revenge.
Yep.
And it made it all so personal against Carrie White, when, like I said, in reality, like, in the book, it was personal, but it wasn't like they were gonna drop him one way or the other. And Billy even said that. He was like, I mean, we don't know who's gonna win, but we're gonna drop it. I don't give a fuck who. Like, it's gonna happen, and we're just gonna run, and it's just gonna be that, and we'll just hope for the best. And the movie doesn't do that.
And like you had said, like, the horror, like, the brutality of it, the grossness, the disgust, not at all. So it, like, weakened the whole. I mean, it weakened the whole prom scene, honestly, because there's no buildup. And then also, like, this movie goes out of its way to, like, explain that Chris tells one of the other students that she'll be there, but not in the way she thinks. And then she's like, "Oh, tell me, I won't tell anybody." And then, like, it's implied that she does tell her, and that they, like, rig the votes. So that's, like, a whole aspect that's not in the book.
Yeah.
And then I'm trying to think what else happens before we get to the prom. We don't even get a scene of her making the dress like she does in the movie.
Nope. And that dress was, the dress pissed me off, because I'm like, that's not at all like what this dress was supposed to look like. It was way too revealing. It was like fucking spaghetti straps, and the color wasn't even right. And I was just like, no, that's not at all.
Yeah, because it was red, like red.
Yeah, and the dress, it's like red in the book, and it's like, it's still modest in the book. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's got sleeves and stuff, and like in this movie, it wasn't that. And I was like, this is stupid.
Yeah. So. Yeah, and then I guess the only other thing that happens in between here is, like, the mom is, like, pacing around her room saying, like, oh, they're going to make fun of you and all this stuff, and she scratches herself and pulls her hair. Yeah. I don't think that happens in the book.
No, it doesn't. And that's something I didn't. It's something that I was, like, noted was different and could have liked, but I did not think he did it well, so I didn't like it.
Yeah.
And the reason I didn't is because, again, this is a moment where if Stephen King had done it, he would have done it better. This is one of those things where it was like, this is something that could have made her seem more like a human, more like a mother, more like I could have had more sympathy for her in the book if you had done like something like that, where it's like, although she's a crazed bitch and she has all this like rage inside of her and whatever else and all this hurt and pain, she cares if these people are going to be making fun of her daughter. Like, there's a moment where she's like, no, don't go. They're going to make fun of you. And even though she's like trying to talk her out of it because she's manipulative, you know that she's probably like, no, they're going to make fun of you. They're going to do this stuff. Stay home. Be safe with me. Right. And in the book, she's not like that. There is no like, you're safer at home, or like, I just want to make sure you're okay, even though I'm going to do it in my crazy psycho way. And in the movie, he tried to do that, but I don't think he did it well, is the thing.
Yeah.
I don't think he did it well, because really everything that the mom was saying was all thoughts that Carrie was saying. And the reason I didn't like it in the movie was because they made Carrie seem so like just worry free. And really, I wanted her to still have that anxiety going into the prom that that they
Yep.
took away and they made it the mom's anxiety. And I didn't want that. I
Yep.
still wanted her to be like, in the book the whole time, she's like, no, these people are setting me up for failure. I still don't believe this is going to happen. Oh, what if this is all a joke? And it's to the point, Carrie in the book, she's like, it's 8:01 and he's still not here. It's 8:05 and he's not here. What if he's not going to come? What if this is all a joke? Oh shit, it's 8:10 and he's, like stuff like that, where in the movie, she's just like, her mom is the one freaking out. She's like, no, mama, I'm going. It's not a joke. Like, it's going to be fine. Like, I want to go to this prom. And that's not how it is. So she just has like too much like rebellious confidence that bothers me, because Carrie in the book doesn't have that. She's still super skeptical. And this Carrie basically sets herself up for failure by not being skeptical, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because then she goes into it thinking, oh, all these people are just like, after she has her conversation with the PE teacher, she's like, oh, like, I'm just going to have a great night and it's fine. And I've made my dress and I look beautiful and Tommy's a good guy and I'm going to go. And like, what?
She's like, I had a glow up. This is my glow up. It's cool.
Like, no, like, I still wanted her to be nervous about it. I wanted her to go into it still skeptical, like how she was in the book, where it literally took until she got up there on the damn stage and people are clapping for her that she's finally like, maybe it's not a bad thing. And then bam, bitch, yes it is. Like, whereas this one, it's like the whole night she's living her fairy tale. She's like, oh my God, I'm going to the prom and it's fine. It's all good. No, mama, like, it's going to be fine. And then it's not.
And then one thing that you saying all that reminds me of is like how hardcore, because in the book they say like mama, and I imagined it like with a southern twang. And then in the movie, I kind of feel like they're trying it, but I don't know. I did not like it. It was like, mama, stop.
Yeah.
Mama. And I was like, oh, I don't like this. I don't like this. I don't like it. It just doesn't make sense because this all happens in like Maine. And I don't know, maybe there's like that accent in Maine, but I would just cut all that out. Like, I don't know. Even in the book, I didn't like it. And in the, like, it being portrayed, I kind of don't like it. And yeah, so after all this stuff, she actually goes to prom with Tommy. We get like a brief moment when they're in the car and she's kind of like nervous. But then again, that scene was like also kind of weak. And then we enter the prom, and that was a very weak entrance compared to the book, where we enter and then she's like on edge. Yeah. And, Tommy's wrestling with his like jockey friends. And then she, thinks about throwing them against the wall or whatever the hell. That we don't have any of that. No. We don't have like any real like interactions with other students or whatever. We do get like one random girl was like, oh my God, where'd you get your dress? And like all this kind of stuff. But that also like, I don't know. It's weird. Like just watching this movie, it was weird that he kept certain things in verbatim. Yeah. Like, like some
verbatim,
of the lines.
like literally. And it's weird because I'm like, no, it doesn't fit anymore.
Yeah, it doesn't. And I was like, why didn't you just change it? Like, just change the words around. Yeah. Because you changed everything else around it. Now, you making it verbatim is making me think about the OG version. And now I know, like, that's something I'm going to, like, keep in mind. Like, if I ever do an adaptation of anything, like, okay, if I do change shit around, I cannot use verbatim lines because it's going to trigger people into the memories of their experience of reading it. Yep. And that it kept pulling me out of the movie. I'm like, oh my God, this is literally the line in the book. That's weird.
And that's what I was saying about, like, when we get towards the end with the scene with the mom, I'm like, she was literally verbatim. Like, I'm like, I actually remember reading these words. Yeah. But it wasn't fitting the scene, so I didn't like it. I'm like, I would have rather you just, like, it just felt like, oh, now I'm gonna throw in this powerful scene. Well, bitch, it would have been powerful if you kept everything else the fucking same, but you changed everything else. You might as well have changed that too, Yep. But anyways, back to the prom.
Yeah. Yeah, so we're at the prom with Tommy at the table with Carrie. This is like the few, I guess this is like a small moment that we actually get with them talking, where in the book I feel like we got a little more time with them connecting and talking and stuff. This is the one moment we get with them, and it was kind of awkward and it was kind of weird. I do like kind of their back and forth. Like you can kind of tell that, well, I mean, you can obviously tell Carrie's into him, and then he's trying to be nice or whatever. But then it gets interrupted with the PE teacher, and then she has like an extended sequence that I think is kind of in the book, but they changed a lot of the dialogue, I think, and like what she tells her and stuff here in the movie. What did you think about that whole, I guess, with Tommy and then with the PE teacher coming in pre-dance?
The scenes with her and Tommy were okay. I wasn't mad at it. I felt like it was more in line, almost like with what you were saying you would have changed. Like just her experience with Tommy and stuff. It was more, it felt more in line with that. Like not exactly, but I was like,
Yeah.
okay, like the vibe here is a little different. And yeah, I mean, it was definitely like flirtatious, but again, like Tommy's vibe was so different that I feel like I still felt something different reading it than I did watching it. And then the scene like of them dancing together, like that was like cute, I guess, but it felt so fairy tale-ish. But it did, I mean, I guess it worked in the favor of like setting, again, like another thing to set Carrie up to feel like this is just a thing happening, like, okay, everything's okay for reals, like no one's setting me up, and then, you know, setting her up for that huge fucking plot twist, I guess, for her. But this scene with the teacher, I barely even remember what did they even talk about. I'm like, what were they even talking? I remember her coming over, but like what did she say to her? I feel like I don't even really
she was like talking about her first prom experience, and she dated this like the leader of a soccer club thing, and then she kind of implied they like had sex, I think, or something. And it was like unforgettable night. You'll never forget it, Carrie. You'll never forget it.
Yeah,
and it was like, oh, that's kind of
I forgot. Yeah, don't like it. Unnecessary. But again, I feel like it was still trying to feed into that, like, Miss Collins is on Carrie's side, you know, like, okay, I have someone here that like truly is sticking up for me and is like caring about my well-being, and someone I can trust, kind of, I guess. But
it doesn't get paid off when she gets killed here in a
and
second.
so I thought, so leading up to that, I thought like, okay, well, maybe since they're doing this whole thing, like maybe she won't kill her. But yeah, obviously she still ends up dying. I thought that this was setting up to like for her to survive.
That would have been really cool.
Yeah. So
yeah.
But yeah, what did you think of the dance scene with Carrie and Tommy?
Yeah, so that was a cool visual choice.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it was executed the best way that I think. Like I think it's a cool idea. Like the camera spinning, them spinning.
It spun too long for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I felt that too. I was like, okay, this is getting just annoying and dizzying.
Yeah.
I think where he fucked up, because it kept spinning and then it just kept spinning faster and faster.
Yeah.
And I think that was a stupid idea. I think it should have spun and then it should have slowed down when they're having like a deep connective emotion, and then sped up like when they're about to kiss, and then slow down while they're kissing. And like, I think it should have been a very fluid kind of like, okay, we're feeling what Carrie's feeling. Because I think that was the idea. Like, you know, it's like, when you do a shot like this, and like filmmaking is called like a one-er or a one take, where you have an extended sequence where there's no cuts, and that's supposed to give you the feeling of you being inside of a character's perspective. A lot of like Netflix shows do this, like now, like, you know, there'll be like a fight scene where you like enter a corridor and you're just following your main character getting a fight or whatever, or a horror sequence where a character enters like a scary room and it doesn't cut, and you're with the character and you're like, oh fuck, like I don't want to look at this anymore kind of vibe.
Okay.
And like he's doing that here with like the emotional side, but the fact that it just keeps spinning faster and faster, I think doesn't work. And then it just becomes annoying and dizzying and confusing for no reason.
Yeah.
And then it starts making me think like, okay, how fast are they just spinning in circles?
That's
like,
what it's like
no one else being
longer,
like,
at first you're not thinking about it. And then the more and more it kept going, I'm like, are they actually spinning? Are we spinning? But it looked like, you know, I'm like, okay, evidently they're spinning. And then I'm like, but is that intentional? Are they just spinning around and spinning around? That's how they're dancing. But I felt like the scene itself was okay. Like the intimacy, like, okay. And then they shared a kiss and I'm like, oh, okay. And I remember you said like in your version, they would kiss. And so I'm like, okay, like, all right, like Ace was onto something. Like, so I didn't hate that stuff happening, but I did not like the spinniness. At first. I mean, at
Yeah.
first it was okay, but the longer it went on, I'm like, oh my God, they're still just spinning and spinning and spinning and spinning. And yeah, like it's getting faster. And now all I can think about is that they're still spinning. I'm not even paying attention to what they're saying anymore because these bitches are still spinning.
And then the kiss, I didn't like the kiss because it was just like a kiss. It wasn't like a big moment. And I just imagine in Carrie's perspective, like I'm thinking in her head, like I will probably never kiss anyone in my life because I'm just made fun of.
Yeah.
So that would have been a huge thing for her. And then for him, I mean, that's beyond you taking a girl to prom. You're fucking cheating at that point.
There was none of that. There was not even they kissed twice, and the second time they kissed, Sue is there, and he just kisses
and she doesn't
her.
even say anything.
She says nothing. I was like, what?
I was like, damn.
That's a different thing to talk about.
They're fully
Yeah,
polyamorous.
but bro, like that was weird. That was so weird to me. And yeah, like you would think it would be such a bigger moment, but it was just like they kissed and then just like, okay, cool, like we kissed, like keep moving on with the conversation. So that was a weird scene. I didn't hate that they kissed. I just felt like the scene could have been better and the buildup could have been better. And that also reminds me, like, one thing that we didn't get through this movie was the or not necessarily through the movie, but starting with the scenes with Tommy, how Carrie has this like ability to affect people's minds and their emotions and their bodies.
Not here at all.
And I thought to myself, I'm like, well, maybe it's just not here because like, how would they translate that onto the screen? I don't know. I'm not a filmmaker, so I'm like that. Maybe that's more difficult to translate, especially considering the fact that we don't get inside the head of anybody. Mm-hmm. We're literally just watching. So I'm like, well, maybe that's why, but because maybe it would have just translated weird as fuck if he just started like fumbling a little or looking dizzy. Like it wouldn't have made sense. We'd have been like, well, why does he look like that? You know what I'm saying? If we're not getting anyone's like actual real thoughts or point of view. But that was one thing that we did not get. One of many things that we didn't get in this movie was her, especially as it relates to the scenes with Tommy, just her ability to really like affect people and how they feel and how they think, and like having these like physical, like visceral, like reactions to her. It's not happening.
Yeah. So the way I would have done that, because I think you can totally do that, would be like sound design. Mm-hmm. Have like weird noises playing over the movie, and then also like voiceover, and you just like edit it to a way to where it's obviously not like not everyone's hearing it, and then you just have a shot of him. You can like kind of like you make it out of focus. You can kind of shake the camera. You can kind of add like weird high pitch like digital noises or whatever, and you're like, oh shit, he's hearing shit, and then him look at Carrie like, did anyone else hear that? That kind of like effect. I think they could have done that, and then I guess that this is like the part that is super dumb. So like we get the whole. Chris set up the cheating votes system, so we don't have like a false or a tiebreaker or anything like that, which I think that was good in the book because it added more attention, like you're drawing it out. And then the whole setup I did not like. The whole fact that Chris was under the bleachers
that
with
shit was
Billy.
Stupid.
And it's so obvious. I mean, they're like literally looking out under the stairs that everyone can see. The rope
and
is
Sue
like exposed.
runs over there and is like pointing, and still nobody is like, let me look under the fucking stair. But anyway, go ahead.
That was like a 5-minute sequence. She's like literally grabbing the rope, stares up at the rope in slow motion, like we're panning, sees the bucket, sees the bucket wobbling. She walks over to the side. She sees the bucket from a different angle. Points at the bucket, looks down, runs towards the steps, uncovers that Chris and Billy are there.
And the teacher's now watching too.
Yeah. And the teacher's like, what the fuck are you doing? And then she looks up at the bucket, still doesn't say anything. Teacher like grabs her and it's like, you need to get out of here. And then instead of her saying anything, I don't know. I was just like, this is so dumb. This is so fucking dumb. There was like no tension.
It was so dumb.
I was like, just drop the bucket. Just drop the bucket.
This was one of the scenes I was talking about felt too long for no reason. Because at any point, Sue could have fucking said something. Why is she so slowly walking? How many different angles do you need to see the fucking bucket at? You know what I'm saying? Like, they probably panned from her eyes to that bucket 10 times, okay?
Yeah.
As she's moving. And then they're panning from the bucket to Sue, to the teacher, to the bucket, to Sue, to the teacher, to the rope. Okay, now to the stairs. Oh, now Sue's over. And I'm like, oh my God, at any point, why are you not like, hey, bitch, you guys move? Or, oh my God, there's a bucket. Or like, oh shit, it's Chris and Billy down here. When the teacher's pulling her away, why is she not saying like, no, hold on, like there's a bucket of something up there, they're about to pull it, I see the rope. Like the teacher has the ability to push her all the way out of the fucking gym, gets her all the way to the door and pushes her out, and she still doesn't say anything.
Yeah. And then Carrie even notices it.
Yes.
And still stands there. Looking like befuddled.
Like there's
and everyone else notices it.
Yes.
No one says anything. And then Tommy just got done smacking lips with Carrie in front of his girlfriend and doesn't say anything about his girlfriend being dragged out. Like, wouldn't he be like, hey, what's going on?
Literally.
That's my girlfriend.
Instead, he kisses Carrie on the stage, and they're still just clapping and just staring. I mean, the scene felt like it was taking ages. I'm like, bad. Just fucking pull the goddamn string at this point.
Yeah. And then we cut to Chris licking her lips, and like, you see her
I hated that
stuff,
scene.
And then that's when she pulls it. I'm like, oh my God, this is
I
not how you build
scene.
tension. I don't know. Maybe back in the day, people were like, "Holy shit, that shit had me screaming."
Yeah, that's what I was
but
also
nowadays,
thinking. I'm like, is this scary for reals? But that scene where fucking Chris licks her lips, that pissed me off. That shit pissed me off. I'm like, was that really fucking necessary, bro? Because in the movie, it just makes like none of it is making sense, because in the book we really get how planned out and detailed this was. We get the whole scene. I know they kind of showed the scene of Billy setting it up, but Billy does that on his own in the book, and like he's in there like fucking up and down the ladder, up and down, like screwing stuff in and hammering shit, and like it's literally a whole fucking thing that he's done. And we know that the blood is up there like all day because it's up there frozen, just defrosting, and they're hoping it's defrosted by the time. And then they have a whole plan ahead of time how they're outside basically waiting to find out like when this is going to happen. We're waiting on the cue for the band to play the music. And then we have a plan
That's the tension.
Yeah. And then we have the plan, like as soon as we pull the rope, we are fucking running, to the point where Billy's like, I will leave you here. If you are not at that car by the time I get back, I'm leaving you. And this just was so drawn out and did not feel planned out at all, because why are they under the stage? How were they planning to exit?
Yeah, how were they going to run away?
How were they planning to run away without being seen if they were literally standing right there underneath the stage?
Yeah, and the way stages work, the back is exposed.
Yes.
You know? Like so the back end of that thing would have just been just a frame.
Yes.
And you would have just saw two idiots licking their lips.
Right. Like it's like none of it was making sense to me.
Logical sense. Yeah.
And then obviously in the movie they have one bucket of blood, where in the book they got the 2 full buckets of blood that's coming down. And again, like this whole thing just felt so personal, whereas like in the book it's like it's gonna happen, and it just so happened that also it was Carrie and Tommy, you know?
Yeah.
And the movie, the way that the director has it, where it's all set up like they're going to win this, we've made the whole plan, the ballots have been fucking changed, like, you know, all of that stuff happening, we're like, okay, they're literally setting Carrie up. Whereas the book, it's like it's a setup, but it's also a bit of just like fate. You know, like it's also just fate, especially the part that we don't get is in the book where, you know, we have the tie and the second runaround where Carrie's like, do not vote for us. Like, I don't want to win this. And then Tommy has that moment of like, well, you know, fuck it. Like, and he marks it, and then they win by 1. You know what I'm saying? They break the tie by that 1 vote. So it's like, the book is like, it's fate, because I mean, Chris is hoping it's Carrie, but they don't have the whole plan. It's like, it's gonna happen, and it just so happens that this one vote of Tommy being like YOLO puts them up there and ends in Tommy's death, and then obviously all this other like tragedy and violence that happens after. So the movie lost that, and I thought that was another thing that was so powerful in the book that we're just not getting here.
Because to move forward, the bucket gets pulled, the blood drops, we get like an extended sequence of Carrie looking out at the crowd, and then the director does this like, I think it's dumb, like kaleidoscope little fraction thing, like little octagon images while she's looking around. I did not like that visual choice.
Yeah.
And then, it takes a while for the bucket to fall and hit Tommy, where in the book that like happens simultaneously.
Immediately, yeah.
And that I found kind of dumb.
I thought that was weird too. I was like, are they not going to kill Tommy with the bucket?
Yeah.
Like, I thought maybe he was going to die some other way or something. I was confused then, but then obviously it still hit him.
And then I think in the book, he dies, she gets covered in blood, and then she has a sequence where she like runs out to the bleachers, right? Or not to the bleachers, but to some like stairs kind of inside the school but outside, and she starts killing them, and she's not staring at them directly. Like in here, she's on the stage, wide-eyed, crazy-eyed, like, I'm gonna kill everybody.
Crazy-eyed.
And I guess, and then she, like, her main power or her main tactic of attack is a water hose, like a fire hose. I was like, wait, what the fuck's going on? Like, she's just spraying people down. What did you... And like this thing was spraying everybody down.
Bro, she was hosing these bitches down. I thought that was really funny because I didn't understand why they just didn't keep with the sprinkler system. Because the water hose seemed so much cornier. Like the sprinkler system made sense. Where
it's
it was
automatic.
oh, I'm turning these on. I'm raining on y'all's fucking parade up in this bitch. And then other stuff starts to happen as a result of the water puddling and coming down. And in the movie, it's like, well, why the fuck is she... And it's just funny. It's funny because it's literally just like a floating fucking fire hose that's literally it's literally just like spraying people down and making people fall, and then it's like directly like spraying the mic that and I think it's the principal in the movie that ends up like being electrocuted, and in the book I think it's a student. But whatever, like, so like all that stuff happening, I thought that was really weird and cheesy. Again, would have just preferred the sprinkler system. That made more sense. And then additionally, the fucking scene with the teacher dying.
Oh yeah, she gets like crushed by, I don't even know. There's some like thing that was hung up on the wall.
It was such a funny death. Like, it was so cheesy. I don't like this thing just like falling down and like hitting her in her fucking stomach, and then she's just like, I'm so
she's
sorry.
Like, and then like falls over on it. Like, I'm dead. It looked like a kid, like when you used to play like whatever game with like your friends. And then you would like shoot them or whatever, and they just do like their like exaggerated
down,
death, and then like, just fall over.
Yes, like that's how that was. That was such a funny death. Again, we kind of lost the. There was like more importance in that because she was the first death. Well, aside from Tommy. She was the first death in the book, because she's running to Carrie like, oh my God, while Carrie's running out, and Carrie fucking smacks her ass into a wall and keeps going and then decides to come back and start killing people. But, in the book, obviously it's not like that. And and by the way, the fucking actress, her eyes, that shit had me fucking weak. Like the way she was like staring out, the crazed look, that was so funny. Which I think in the book he does say like she had like this, like her eyes opened up so wide. I think when he's telling one of the recounts from a different person's perspective.
Yeah, she looked feral.
I think they do say that, but it was just so fucking funny like seeing that, because the whole time her eyes are just like they never calm down, right? So like she's just up there covered in blood, standing on the stage, everyone's getting wet blasted with the fucking fire hose, and then shit's catching on fire, and some people go down with the electricity.
Yeah.
But then that's it.
Yep. That's it. And then we don't even get, like, we had like a perfect scene where like there's these two guys, which made like no logical sense. They're like trying to get out of the doors at the same time.
Yeah.
And then they're just being squished.
Yeah.
But then we never see them like getting squished to death.
Nope.
We never see arms cut off or hands.
Nothing.
Or like people trying, like, I didn't feel the panic.
Nope, I didn't.
People trying to escape.
It was more just like
the water
screaming,
hose,
like, yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, this is dumb. And then she just like walks out. And then this is the part where I'm like, okay, I don't think any of these movies are going to do the part of the book that becomes the most gruesome is when she literally burns and kills all these innocent people in the town, like her path of destruction.
Yeah.
And I think that's like probably like the biggest, I mean, even bigger than the prom is her destroying the city.
Yep.
I think is like the big thing, you know, it's like when someone's when someone, like in this kind of scenario, like they hurt people, but then they keep hurting the collateral damage of other people that have nothing to do with this event. And I think that's where it becomes like really disturbing. And like this movie completely ignores all that.
Yep.
And instead we have her like walking down the street, and then we have Chris driving down. And then like, oh my God, that scene I also hated.
Dude, that shit was hilarious.
The car just like flips and then like explodes and that's it.
And that was so lame. And also they had it to where Chris and Billy watched. They watched from the outside of the gym as Carrie burned things down. Like they watched her like, do that.
Damn.
And then they go and like they're trying to run her down, and then it's so funny.
Yeah, after
like
you see that.
The scene, like she turns around, like she hears the car and then zoom in on her face, and then bam, like the car's rolling over and now it's blown up. Like that was so lame. That was such a lame. I mean, in the book, their death was just as lame as their car blowing up, but it was worse in the. It was definitely a lot worse. And in the book, it happened like towards the end, like she's like literally about to die and this happens. And in the movie, it's just like, oh, I just blew up the high school, like I'm blowing you guys up too. And then, like, obviously we miss all of that fucking death and suffering, which was the part that was so horrific. That was honestly the part of this book that was horror, because Stephen King told us the whole fucking book that she was going to kill the people at the high school and at the prom. But what he never told us was just how destructive she was after the prom. We didn't know that. Like, I knew she was going to kill these people, because they kept saying prom, and they kept saying like students that died. He never told us that she's gonna kill the whole town, damn near that 500 people. Like they never said that. So that was the part of the book when we got to that scene where I was like, oh, this is the horror, because this bitch is just evil at this point, and I'm gonna go, open up the fire hydrants and fucking electrocute just innocent people in the street, and people's burning up, and I'm blowing up gas stations. We didn't get any of that. It's like she killed the people in the high school, which makes sense. I mean, it's horrible, but it makes sense because the director has set it up. Well, they're all basically trying to make fun of Carrie. Everybody's in on this thing that we're gonna dump blood on her. And then she goes home and takes a fucking bath.
Oh, yeah.
What? I was so mad. Because not only did we not get all the other like tragic violence and gore and death, she didn't even go home and have the fucking standoff with her mom where it's like, bitch, I'm here to kill you. You're here to kill me. What it do? We didn't even get that. She went home and fucking took a bath. And her mom was like weirdly standing behind the door, and Carrie didn't see her, and she's just waiting for Carrie, and Carrie just literally takes an entire bath. I was like, what?
Yeah. A long ass bath.
Long bath.
Like, I want a bath like that after work.
Yes. She took a long bath and then comes out and has no intention of killing her mother. Is like, oh, mom.
It's like, hey, what's up,
mama?
Prom
like some shit happened. Oh my God, mama, like trying to hug her mom.
It's like, let me tell you, we're
And
gonna be on
I'm
the
like,
news.
what? Oh, also, wait, to go back. What the fuck, that weird-ass scene that they randomly, like, panned over, and it was just the mom standing in the house with carrots, and she starts chopping up the carrots, like, real
Oh my
random.
god, that was so dumb. Yeah, and then she keeps chopping the wood. No more. There's no carrot. There's no carrot anymore. And she's like, chang, chang, chang. And the camera keeps like cutting closer and closer. And I'm like, bro.
That scene had me weak. That was actually really funny because I'm like, what was the point of this scene? Just to like show us that she's now gonna have a butcher knife when Carrie gets home. You know what I'm saying? Like, was that the whole purpose of the fucking scene? Because did I really need to see her like very aggressive. Like chop carrots with one hand? That shit was really funny. But anyway, so then fucking the bath, and just like I wanted that standoff scene. And
yeah, we didn't get it because they just hug and then she stabs her.
Let's pray together. Yeah, and Carrie falls down the fucking stairs.
Mm-hmm. And then I can't remember exactly how the mom dies in the in the book she just dies of a slow heart attack.
Yeah.
In this, Carrie like stabs her with like 7 knives.
Yes.
What did you think about that?
Okay, so I will say that I saw where the director was going with this. I enjoyed the stabbing death so much more than the like peaceful, I'm just slowing your heart, like, oh, slower, mama, slower, like where she's just like slowing her heart down. Like, I enjoyed the stabbing, but as soon as that first knife went through her hand, I said, oh, this is like a Jesus allegory. Like, he is about to pose her like she is being crucified type shit. Mm-hmm. And then it was exactly like that little Jesus figurine that was in Carrie's little thing. Yep. And so like, I just knew that's where that was going immediately. Yep. So I will say that I preferred the stabbing death, but the thing I didn't like was that Carrie seemed so weak when she was doing that, and then just like her like crouched in the corner just like, oh my god, like, no. In the book, again, Carrie just came off a fucking rampage of killing the whole town and then comes home with literally the thought process in mind that she's about to kill her mother.
That boop, dead.
Yeah, like she came home like, I'm killing this one too. This bitch is out too. Like, so it was just so weak. I don't know. It was so weak. So like, yes, she was stabbed, and I'm like, okay, but then the mom wasn't as fucking evil in the movie, even where it would have been like, like, yeah, she deserved that stabbing. I mean, like, she was crazy, but it wasn't the same thing. And so I appreciated the stabbing, but again, could have been better. Didn't like Carrie's attitude towards it, and fucking hated the aftermath of that as well.
Yes, yeah. So that she drags her body, unpins her body.
Yeah.
While the house is collapsing on itself, they go into a closet. Everything collapses. House catches on fire.
And then what? Falls into the fucking pits of hell? I was confused. Like, where is this house going? Because it's like, it wasn't just like collapsing from the top. It was literally like sinking.
Yeah, the ground.
It's like
like a sinkhole.
Yeah, like it was being eaten by the ground, and she just goes and fucking dies in the closet holding her mom.
Yeah.
I said, fuck off. This shit sucked. The end.
Yeah. That was... Yeah, it was very weak. It was very weak. And we don't even see her actually die.
No.
You know, like, she's just like... She's cradling her mom, and then like the next time we see her, her mouth is
open and bloody. Yes, like, what the fuck? Blood. I was like,
dead.
what?
Blood.
What? And we never get the scene with like Sue and her having like this moment. Like, we never get any of that. And the next thing we know, so now she's died, and now Sue is fucking in a damn coma, or like not a coma, but you know, she's just like sleeping and like having nightmares. Like, what?
She has naps now.
That was lame.
Yeah, and then she has a nightmare of visiting the house's burial site, and then she plants flowers. We have a jump scare.
That was the only part. I really did jump on that one. I wasn't.
Oh shit.
I wasn't like a full like, oh my god, but it was like literally like, you know, one of those like knee jerk reactions where your body's like, ooh, like I wasn't expecting that, like, and I wasn't even scared. It was just like, oh, like I was startled. Like, I'm like, oh. That was the only part of this movie that got me a little bit. Because I think I was just staring so hard, like, what? like
Like
still
what is
just
going? Yeah, what's going on?
confused.
Yeah,
So they really got me with that little piece. But yeah,
yeah. And then we cut from that, and then yeah, we just end with her screaming or crying in the
yeah,
bed with her mom.
lame.
I thought that was dumb. The whole nightmare thing was dumb.
Yeah,
I don't know. The whole death, the whole the finale was so weak and
lame.
dumb because I think even in the book it was like stones started falling down,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And that was what was crushing them. I think that would have been cooler. And again, like there's this movie is so unbloody and
yeah.
ungory and
Hmm.
unnasty. Like it's just such a weird
Yeah.
adaptation.
It's like
When
I
some
almost
like
wonder, like,
that's
why would you make an adaptation of this book if it's not going to be bloody and gory?
yeah. Like if you're not gonna at least try to match the book,
Yeah.
like you, what are you doing?
It's like,
And
really,
then
what
yeah,
about
just
this was horror?
yeah, and then that's the thing that like really I find weird. Like this movie is like super renowned. Like it got nominated for Oscars. It won Golden Globes at the
Damn.
time. It has like a 95 on Rotten Tomatoes, like an 80
Mm-mm.
something on Metacritic.
Damn.
People talking about like it's one of the horror staples of the genre
It's
of like
literally
all
horrible.
cinema. Yeah.
So sorry. It's like not good at all.
Yeah, yeah. I was trying to think of a rating and like where I kind of ended up out of 10. When like this is like without the book idea,
Hmm.
like without the disappointment of like the adaptation, like I think it's like kind of like a 4 or 5 out of 10.
Yeah.
Like it's either average or actually kind of bad.
Yeah. Yep. I agree.
Well, what would you, I
Yeah.
guess, give it out of
I'm
10?
thinking about like about a 5 or so. And I feel like a 5 is generous.
Yeah,
Because it
yeah,
just like even I don't know, it just wasn't doing it for me. And then for it to be considered a horror movie, and then yeah, like I know that even though I haven't seen the movie, I know that Carrie is like a staple. Like that is like everybody knows Carrie, right? And I'm assuming everybody doesn't fucking know it from the book. They probably all know it from the movie. And so
mm-hmm.
to see the movie, I'm like, this wasn't even good. Like it wasn't scary in any way. And we already know, like just reading the book itself is not scary. It's like horror in a different way. But
Yeah,
again, what
yeah,
made it scary was the whole scene in the town and just like her path of vengeance and just evilness. That's what made it horror. And then this movie
yeah,
just completely ignores all of that. And so it wasn't, and then yeah, there were just so many like cheesy scenes, stuff that just like didn't really make sense, that it wasn't like a great movie. Like, and it's not even just based on my thought process that it doesn't match up to the book. It just wasn't that great to me. Like, it was like okay. Like, it's
yeah,
like, it's like I would never watch that again. Like,
yeah,
like that's definitely
yes.
not a classic for me. Like, that's never something I'd be like, oh, it's Halloween, gotta watch Carrie, gotta bust out the Carrie. Like, hell no. Like, I watched it the one time, and I feel like that's good.
We're good. Yeah,
Yeah,
we're good. We're gonna close the book on that one. I'm gonna take
yeah,
a bath right after this.
yeah. It's done. Like, I would not watch that again. It just wasn't.
Mm,
It just didn't do it for me. It didn't do it for me.
okay. All right. So that's our rating for the actual movie. I guess I'm trying to think of like what we should call this. Would you what do you think, like I guess let's go like just broadly. What do you think are like the good things that it did adaptation wise? And we already talked about all the negative, but was there any like positive things that you want to like end with, or like okay, I like this and this that he changed the
Mm.
director, or was there anything?
I liked the little bit of like extra intimacy that we had between Carrie and Tommy. Even though it was like very minimal, it's just like a little kiss here and there or whatever.
Yeah,
I did like,
a little schmack.
yeah, I did like, I liked the mom's death more, but I
Yeah.
also liked it
Mm-hmm.
less, if that makes sense. I don't know. Like, I feel like I wish, like, we would have gotten something, at least, like, a stabbing. Like, so
Yeah.
in that aspect, I'm like, even though the mom was not portrayed well in the movie, I'm going to pretend that that's the kind of death that the one in the book got. So I feel almost
Mm.
like just a little bit better, like knowing some version of this bitch got stabbed the fuck up, you know? Even though even though she got stabbed, it still wasn't even a gruesome death. It was just like she got crucified, and Carrie feels
Yeah.
horrible about it after. There's no like, oh, like you deserved this. I mean, there was like nothing. It was just like, oh, she got stabbed. But at the end of the day, I still appreciated that she at least fucking got stabbed. I was afraid we were gonna get that fucking heart stop shit. That would have been stupid.
Yeah.
I think that would have been worse to see on screen than to read. It was already bad in the book, but I feel like that would have been even worse. So yeah, I'll give it that. But I think that's about it. And I liked that he made Miss Collins or Miss Desjardins or whatever, like, kind of like Carrie's confidant. Like, I feel like the book, she needed somebody like that. But then, like I said earlier, I feel like even though he made that change, he changed so much other stuff that it didn't make a difference in the end. Like, it wasn't the thing that would have made a difference. Whereas in the book, if Stephen King would have written the teacher as like this, yeah, like I said, like confidant or protector, just somebody on her side, that could have made a difference in the way that the book ended. But in this story, in the movie adaptation, it didn't make a difference. So it's almost like, well, was it needed? I would have rather her just been how she was in the book and still just died.
Yep. I agree. I agree with all three of your positives, actually. Like, I do enjoy that she actually got stabbed. I do enjoy the Miss Desjardins being a little more active, and I do enjoy... Shit, I forgot the first one. Oh, the intimacy with Tommy, the kiss and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's gonna wrap us up. Unless you had any other points that we didn't bring up or anything that we missed.
Nope, I'm good. I think that was it.
Okay. Yeah, and I guess how are you feeling drink wise? Are you feeling all right?
Oh, I'm feeling it. I'm definitely feeling it. I feel good though. How about you? How's that Crown Apple?
It's good. Ginger ale and Crown Apple. It's a good mix. It is still a little too sweet though.
Yeah.
It's shocking how sweet this thing. Like,
it
doesn't show how many like grams of sugar is in this damn thing, but it must be a lot.
Yeah, I'm thinking
to power through the like just straight up whiskey Crown taste.
Yeah,
I'm vibing. I'm gonna have to get some food. You're gonna have to get some food.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And yeah, but so yeah, thanks everyone for listening to our first adaptation reaction. Next week we will finish off this little 2 movie series adaptation reaction little mini episodes with the 2013 adaptation. It's directed by Kimberly Pierce and it stars Chloe Grace Moretz. So I'm really excited to see the modern version of this thing. So that'll be next week. We'll talk about that. And yeah, if you want to follow my other things, I have a movie podcast called Cineverm. I have a YouTube channel called A Lonely Gamer where I do Let's Plays, and another channel called A Lonely Critic where I do solo reviews. And if you liked our conversation, please rate and review us on Apple Podcast and Spotify. And be sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. You can send us a message at readdrinktalk@gmail.com if you have any thoughts about the film or our discussion on it. And yeah, we will see you next week.